Good night, good night, good night, good people of St. Joseph. Good night. You know, it's always good for me to come up here and fellowship with my good friend and neighbor here in St. Joseph. Hailing from St. Andrew, we have so many things in common. We share so much, and our paths have been so similar over the years that it is quite uncanny. But tonight, I'm here to support a young man whose journey in politics is somewhat similar to mine, in the sense that just 4 years ago, I was in a similar position. I was made to step in the shoes as a guerrilla, as described by our chair, a guerrilla, a giant in the business, Mr. George Payne. And now, Mr. Ryan Braffett is in a similar situation where he now has to wear some very, very big shoes. And I have no doubt in my mind that Ryan Braffett will not only wear those shoes, but at some point, he's going to stretch them out. Because you have a young man who is no stranger, no comer. In St. Andrew, we have a comer, a man that came from town. And all of a sudden, after 2 months, he loves every single body in St. Andrew. He loves them unconditionally. He wants to marry them. They're the most fantastic thing he have ever seen. But we know that he's just some three-card man that was sent up there by the rat, trying to fool country people. But you don't have that problem up here, you see. You have a man that is a son of the soil, a man that was amongst you from the start, a man that for the past 15 years was working in the constituency, working in the communities, working within the country, working all across St. Joseph. That is what you have. You have a quality candidate. Someone that you can take seriously. Someone that takes you seriously. He's not someone who's going to come and show up for the duration of this particular election campaign and then disappear immediately afterwards. Because that's what they do, you know. I remember standing in Whole Town and telling the people of St. James North that they will never ever see Felicity Dujon in St. James North again. And my words didn't even drop before she was gone. She was gone. And now she's gone up in St. George North, South, to get beat. So I'm saying to you that you have someone who's here for the long term, who's here to stay, who's been here for a while, and who will continue to be here. And Ryan is special to me not only because he's new and because he's my neighbor. When I did my first spot meeting, my very first spot meeting, Ryan spoke on my platform. And ever since then, even though he was the prospective candidate, even though he was there and waiting, we worked together. He walked my constituency because we share a border. And in some cases, I walked his. Because Labour Party people are Labour Party people regardless if they're in St. Joseph or in St. Andrew. If they're red, they're our people. And we took care of our people. That's what we did. George and Dale did that before us. And I know that Ryan and Romel will continue it. So those on our borders, Have no fear. If you're voting in St. Joseph but live in St. Andrew, I got you covered. If you live in St. Andrew, vote in St. Joseph, covered. That's how we live. So that's why I'm happy to return the favor tonight on this, his first national meeting, to come here and talk about a man that I believe in, a man that you can trust, a man that's committed to St. Joseph, a man that's committed to young people, a man that's tried and tested as an entrepreneur, as a businessman. Brilliant young man, successful man. That's what you have. You have a quality candidate. Quality. I'm sure there's some who will envy you. But you're lucky in this regard. Now, Mr. Braffett, he's coming to a constituency, as I said, that is very close to my heart and very close to my own constituency. And some of the issues that they face here in St. Joseph, I also face in St. Andrew. In fact, I remember when I first went to the Ministry of Public Works, I had the responsibility for water resources for BWA. And I remember that many a days, I would see the complaints coming in about water outages. Water off. People complaining, can't cook, can't bathe, can't wash. These were the types of problems that we were hearing about every single day at BWA coming out of St. Joseph. I remember it very well. I remember the people protesting. I remember seeing it on social media. Calling in on the calling program. But when I got to the ministry, this government had already set in place plans to address the problems that were plaguing the people here in St. Joseph. People right here in Lammings. One of the first things that they did was to change out the mains. So we saw a main replacement program being done here in St. Joseph. We saw a grade to the mains. Bigger mains were placed. More resilient mains were used that could handle the types of soils that you still find here in the Scotland district. And then additional supplies were sought out over at Sweet Vale in St. George, where we then had to pump water from that particular facility over here so you can have greater supply here in St. Joseph. And then came the opening of the Castle Grant Reservoir. I don't know how long that original reservoir was there, but you know a reservoir was there before. It was small. It was leaking. It was inadequate. I think it was built nearly 100 years ago. It was not fit for purpose, and this government saw it fit to build a new reservoir right here in St. Joseph so that people here can get good, proper water to drink. Good, proper water to use. That is what this government did for the people of St. Joseph. I don't want you to forget it. I want to remind you of the bad old days. I want to remind you of the days waiting on the truck. Don't say Andrew, they refer to it as a vat. I want to remind you of the days going to the community tank. Now you hardly see those community tanks, those black tanks. They were all over the place. All in St. Andrew, all about in St. Joseph. And that was, in many cases, the only source of water for many persons. But with the work that we've put in to this constituency, we have seen the disappearance of those community tanks. Now, I'm not saying that there will not be water outages from time to time. We have them everywhere. I'm not saying that the problem is 100% fixed, because it's not. From time to time, you will find water outages in elevated areas. We had the same problem in St. Andrew. We had the same problem in White Hill. Every day we had Carlita on the calling program complaining about the pipe off in White Hill. Every single week the water was off for days and days and days, sometimes weeks the water was off. But we also fixed that too. Now this is months. I've never heard about any water being off in White Hill. Same thing can be said for parts of St. Joseph where they struggle with water outages. Months, no water truck. Oh, can't you hear? We don't see St. Joseph on the list now like before. Because we fixed that problem, we faced it, and we fixed the problem. These little things that bother you, that irk you. And these are the types of things that we've been doing for this constituency, this government. So I don't want you to forget. And then we think about health care. You know, I said it last night, and I will say it again. This has not been an easy government. These last 7 years have not been easy. I spoke about COVID and what it did to communities. I spoke about how persons suffered. People were afraid to step outside their doors. But what I did not mention in St. Peter last night was that right here in St. Joseph, in the midst of COVID, this government reopened that St. Joseph outpatient clinic. Right in the midst of COVID. Because we felt that persons here in these rural spaces who traditionally don't get anything first, we from the countryside, we don't get the things first. We know that. We understand that. Things happen in town, and then they come out here. It's always been like that. And we know that. But we are just as deserving. And this government felt that we were just as deserving to have proper healthcare facilities in the rural spaces as what you have there in town, in the urban spaces. And right in the midst of COVID, when people were still struggling, people were still dying from COVID, this government opened that outpatient clinic in Horse Hill. And I don't know if you remember what the old place looked like, because you can hardly remember it now. Sometimes you forget how things used to look, man. But I remember passing that Horse Hill and seeing a piece of old pop-down building there, so this yellow building there. The place to stand up. You had to go point somebody old garage if the rain come down. No proper place to sit down. And this government took that facility, rebuilt it, refurbished it, and built a modern facility that anybody in St. Joseph can be proud of. And in 2021, that facility was reopened. Persons were able to go there and sit down in comfort, because it's bad enough that you're sick. But then if you have to stand up and wait or be uncomfortable, it makes it even worse. And all that time we put a stop to people having to travel far and go up in St. John and up in St. George and Glebe and all these places to get medical care, basic medical care. St. Joseph people can now pop short there so in Horse Hill and get the care and get it in the comfort. And when you're waiting and you want to use the internet, you can do that too, because there's free Wi-Fi. These are the type of small things, and for some people, big things, that this government has been doing for this constituency. And the same thing can be said for my constituency in St. Andrew, because 4 days later, we reopened the St. Andrew outpatient clinic as well. There's on the 10th, or it's on the 14th of May, 2021. And our people also enjoy the benefits of having a healthcare facility right there in the middle of the community, that they don't have to go and catch the bus and go all the way down in Warrens and all the way down in town and Spikestown to get treatment. And I say that to say that we did that. This government did that. This government saw the importance of it and did it. In the last few minutes I have, I want to talk a little bit about the roads, because you can't come into St. Joseph and don't talk about roads. We know that we have some problems here with some of the roads. We know that some of the roads have been in a bad state for a long time. We know this. But we also know that work has started on repairing many of those roads. You go there on Highway C and Horsell, you see that road has been paved. Phase 1 of that has been done, and that's continuing. Down by St. Elizabeth School, I remember going down there with Brian Braffett and the then MP for the area, Dale Marshall. Road was wavy and wheelie. People were passing and grumbling. If you want to, were cussing under the breath. And 3 weeks later, a few weeks later, I don't want to put a date to it, a few weeks later, that road was smooth, fully refurbished. This is a responsive government. It came up there, Lanes Bridge. Now people can use that bridge again. That bridge was down for a while. And I would like to make the point that things may take long in the Scotland district. And you have to understand why they take long. Because you're not building on rock like in town. You're building on mud. And when you build on mud, you have to build extra strong foundations. You have to take more care, especially when you're building bridges that water flow under. Because the water will score the abutments, the walls, the support of those bridges. And if they're not built properly, quick so after these big heavy rains that we've been getting now because of climate change, because of the climate crisis. If you don't build those bridges properly, if you don't build those bridges with resilience, then chances are very shortly afterwards you will lose those bridges. And that's why sometimes they take so long, because we have to design them and we have to build them properly. And that is what we've been doing. We've been building things properly. Those original bridges were built by our forefathers, and they lasted for 70 and 80 years. But they weren't designed for these big heavy buses that you see, or these big heavy trucks, or the amount of cars that we see on the road. So they're all crumbling. That's why Melvin Bridge crumbled. We were hoping and praying that it will be finished, that we will finish Brucefield Bridge before Melvin Bridge crumbled, but that was not to be. But we are working on that. Very quickly, very soon, that will be started. But just want you to understand that St. Joseph is a work in progress. This is a constituency hard at work in transforming itself through the efforts of this government, through the efforts of this Mayor Motley-led administration that cares about people, that understand the importance of moving people, understand the importance of transporting people. And that's why leadership matters in every aspect, because she is a tested, she is a tried, she is a true leader, and people in St. Joseph have absolutely no reason in the world to vote for anybody but Ryan Braffett. You have no reason in the world to vote for anybody but Ryan Braffett. What can they do for you? Nothing. So on February 11th, when you go out to vote Ryan Braffett, vote for the Barbados Labour Party, vote for Mayor Motley, vote for Progress. People of St. Joseph, good night and God bless.